We're back up.
We certainly are.
And we've got an awesome guest. I couldn't sleep last night, Paul.
I bet you couldn't.
I couldn't sleep last night. We've got the amazing Bob. And Bob, we always do this when we kick off a podcast. I'm sure some of our viewers will have viewed before, but if you was on a dinner party and I asked you to explain who is Bob Berg, what would you say to people around that dinner table?
I probably wouldn't say too much other than that I speak at conferences and conventions, and I write books on personal development, sales, and communication skills.
As simple and concise as that.
Simple as concise as that. And yeah, we've read the book and it was awesome.
And I think
thank you.
We've got you on today, Bob, to talk about the book, The Go-Giver, and try and give our listeners an insight into that book. But for people who's not read the book, what is the premise of the book itself?
Yeah, it's a business parable. So it's a short story co-authored with John David Mann, who is really the lead writer and storyteller. He's a brilliant writer. I'm really just a how-to guy. And the premise is that shifting your focus, and this is really where it all begins, shifting your focus from getting to giving. And when we say giving in this context, we simply mean constantly and consistently providing immense value to others. And it's understanding that doing that is not only a more fulfilling way of conducting business, it's actually the most financially profitable way as well. And not for any kind of way out there, woo, magical, mystical type of reasons. It actually makes very rational, very logical sense. When you're that person who can take your focus off of yourself and place it on serving others, discovering what they want, what they need, what they desire, when you can help others, focus on helping others to solve their challenges and problems, you are that person that other people feel really good about. People feel great about you. They want to get to know you. They like you. They trust you. They want to do business with you, and they want to tell others about you. They want to become your personal walking ambassador. So that's really what the gist of the story and the message is about.
I love that.
I love that.
And what would you say, Paul, on that?
I think I can tell when you've read the book quite a few years ago that it's something that we've always tried to do in the last few years. I think you really, when you said the book had a profound effect on your life, you certainly did, because it's something that you've passed and you've given a lot, not only to me, but in the community. And also I've tried to do the same. I try and give as much as I can and I don't expect anything back, but roundabout way it always does. And yeah, I think it's a great book and it's a great read and everybody should do it. But could you give us a quick review, Bob, on the 5 laws that you and John share in the book?
Sure. The 5 laws themselves are the laws of value, compensation, influence, authenticity, and receptivity. The law of value is all about making the actual buying experience, even over and above the product or service itself, which of course has to be great value right in and of itself, but making the entire experience, the excellence you provide, the consistency you provide it with, the attention to detail and to that person as a human being, the empathy you display for them and their needs, and the appreciation and gratitude that you communicate. It's about making it so that experience is so fantastic that person feels as though they've gotten much more in value than what they've paid, while you've also made a very healthy profit. Law number 2, the law of compensation, says your income is determined by how many people you serve and how well you serve them. So it's not just about the great value you provide, though that's certainly very important. That's the foundational principle. It's also about the number of people's lives you impact with that value. Law number 3, the law of influence, says your influence is determined by how abundantly you place other people's interests first. No, not in a doormatty type of way or a self-sacrificial way or a martyrish type of way. Not at all. It's simply understanding, as Joe, the protege in the story, learned from several of the mentors, the golden rule of sales, of business, is that all things being equal, people will do business with and refer business to those people they know and trust. And there's no faster, more powerful, or more effective way to elicit those feelings toward you from others than by genuinely moving from that I focus or me focus to an other focus. Or as Sam, one of the mentors in the story, explained to Joe, it's making your win all about the other person's win. And again, this is not just feel-goody stuff. As I often say, whenever I speak at sales conferences, first thing I'll often say is, nobody's going to buy from you because you have a quota to meet. right? They're not going to buy from you because you need the money. And they're not even going to buy from you just because you're a really nice person. They're going to buy from you because ultimately they believe they will be better off by doing so than by not doing so. And that's the only reason we should ever expect anyone to do business with us. And that's great. That's great for the person who really has a heart to serve, to give genuine value, to place their interests first, even before our own. Law number 4 is the law of authenticity. And this says the most valuable gift you have to offer is yourself. And in this part of the story, Deborah explained that, all the skills, the sales skills, people skills, technical skills, as important as they are, and they are indeed all very important, they're also all for naught if you don't come at it from your true, authentic core. But when you do, when you show up as yourself, day after day, week after week, month after month, people feel very comfortable with you. People feel good about you. People feel safe with you. And why wouldn't they? They know who they're getting. And this kind of consistency in an otherwise very inconsistent world in which people want to make sense of the world, this kind of authenticity inspires trust.
Yeah.
And it maintains trust and it drives that trust. So authenticity is very important. Now, I got to say one thing. I think that in a sense, and I don't know if this is the same across the pond as it is here in the States, but authenticity has almost taken on a different meaning. It just means you have no boundaries. You can just say whatever it is you want, and that's okay because I'm being authentic. And I disagree with that. I don't really think that's authenticity. This is like the person who says, I have anger issues and I yell at people a lot. And if I were to act any differently, that wouldn't be authentic of me. No, what it means is this person has an authentic problem that they need to authentically work on in order to become a better, higher, more effective, authentic version of themselves. So we never want to allow authenticity, that concept, to keep us where we are, not growing. Instead,
we're a bit more reserved, Bob, over in the UK in terms of, I think the point you're making there is we struggle sometimes to be authentic in the UK in terms of getting to know the real person. We think sometimes we have to be the stiff upper British lip we have, but I think it's coming more apparent where I think the phrase is people buy from people. We are all real people. And I think the pandemic's actually shown that, where we've been communicating from home in our living rooms with the cat walking across the back of the screen, the kids crying, screaming, shouting. So I think that's catapulted the authenticity, I would say. But back to your point in terms of using it as a somewhere to hide. To hide. I think what's really important, and I don't know about you guys, but as long as it's not illegal, as long as you're not hurting anybody, I think, we want to be as authentic as we can, but we've got to put others first, because what we think is right isn't what other people think is right always, isn't it? And I think that can be a little bit of a challenge, would you say?
Yeah, I define authenticity very simply. And as you can tell, I try to keep things as simple as I can, right? And I define authenticity as simply acting congruently with your values.
Love that.
If you're doing that, you're being authentic. And then the last one is the last law is the law of receptivity. And this one says the key to effective giving is to stay open to receiving. This really means nothing more than understanding that, you breathe out. Well, you also have to breathe in, right? It's not one or the other. You breathe out carbon dioxide, you breathe in oxygen. You breathe out, which is giving. You breathe in, which is receiving. Giving and receiving are not opposite concepts, though the message we get from the world around us is very anti-prosperity. You know what I'm saying? It's they demonize people who make money, and it means you must have done something wrong, or you must be greedy, or you must this, or you must that. There's all sorts of people in the world, and not everybody does things as we'd like them to do. But if you're operating in a type of business where nobody is forced to buy from you, which I think most of us probably are, then the only way you can make a lot of money is to serve a lot of people and to serve them with exceptional value, to serve many of them, to place their interests first, because remember, they're not buying for your sake, they're buying for their sake, to be authentic, but then when you do that, you've got to allow yourself to receive. So we've got to be able to get rid of those horrible anti-prosperity messages that the world gives us and be able to be gratefully accept and receive that which we've earned. So we like to say that receptivity, or giving and receiving rather, are two sides of the very same coin. They work in tandem. Now, here's the thing. what we all know is that the giving comes first. That's the focus. This is why John David Mann and I say that money is simply an echo of value. The value must be the focus. The money you receive is simply a result of the value you've given. But we know the giving comes first. We plant before we harvest, right? That's natural law. We sow before we reap. That's natural law. We give before we receive.
Love it. Dean, what I want to call out, because you've read the book yourself, but Dean handles our customer success. Over the years, the business has been going 20 years, and we've moved Dean into a role, haven't we, Dean, where his sole focus is to look after the customers. And he is there to challenge myself and another director, but you explained that role, because it's been a bit of a challenge for you, this role, hasn't it, in terms of...
Yeah. Part of the customer's success journey is also selling and providing them services that they need, from a monetary value. Now, it's been difficult for me to transition from a service point of view. I was service delivery and fixing things, but then to jump into the bit I'm at now, I'm always happy to give more to the customer to make them happy. But when it came to, I suppose the main bit I struggled with was the selling. I've never been a salesperson, but what I learned from the book really was sort of just that side of things. Just be genuine, provide as much value as you can when you're offering a product or a service, but also making sure that it's fixing that customer's need. I'm giving them something more than just a product. I'm giving them our additional service as well. If anything goes wrong, they fall back on us. And it was quite a difficult concept to get my head around at first. It goes against what I've read in the past about sales, but to be fair, the book helped me massively.
I so appreciate knowing that. And really the key is that, and here's what's interesting. The Old English root of the word sell was salan, which meant to give. So when you're selling, you're literally giving. Now, someone might say, wait a second, isn't that just semantics? What are you really giving when you're selling? I would say this: when you're selling, you're giving that person time, attention, counsel, education, empathy, and ultimately immense value. When you see sales that way, now it's totally different from the caricature of the eye-focused salesperson who only wants it, right? And the key to doing this is to ask questions in order to discover that person's needs, their wants, their desires, understand their problems and how your product or service is able to help them, understand what's going to bring happiness to them through and then you connect the benefits of your product or service with that. And so really great salesmanship is always about the other person.
Yeah.
And when we look at it this way, now we can feel really good about sales.
And I completely agree. Would you agree?
I totally agree with that, because if you're adding value to any company and going out and over and above what you do, I don't think you need to sell, because the person who's really happy with the service you provide will come back and buy a few again because they're happy with the service you've given from start to finish.
And I think what's really interesting on this, Bob, is we had Dan Cockrell, the former vice president of Disney, on previously.
Oh, I love him. When I had a podcast, I had him on mine. What a great man, great human being.
Incredible. And what was really interesting, because when we talk about that word success, we're doing quite a lot of things different in our customer journey, and none of it makes financial sense sometimes, but serving doesn't make sense, does it, at times? How would you educate people on that? Because sometimes it just doesn't make logical sense. Because when we get, what's the word I'm trying to, let me explain this better. In sales, you can get entrenched on what am I getting, can't you? And it's all about the transactional value. But giving is so much more than that. And it's a bit like we talk about Andy's Man Club. This podcast wouldn't have been about if it weren't for Andy's Man Club. We helped how many thousand men this year?
84,000.
84,000 men. Now, when I first got involved in that, everybody who was near and dear to me was telling me, what on earth are you giving your time to this thing for? But it's only when you read your book and then I'm at the other side of it. We would never be having this conversation with you if I hadn't given that time previously. We didn't have, there's so many things we wouldn't have done. And it comes back tenfold, doesn't it, Bob? But how would you speak about that to someone getting out on that journey, to give them that kick over that hill?
Again, I want to take it from it doesn't make sense to it does make sense. Because remember, other people are going to do business with you because they see you as someone worthy of doing business with. They know you, they like you, they trust you, they see what you have as being of value to them. So when you look at it this way, there's nothing about this that's counterintuitive, although it can sound it that way. If, again, like most people, we've grown up with that idea that sales is something you do to someone and you're right. Yeah. But if we know that's not the case, then it makes logical sense.
But if I go back then, so let's talk about value then. So how does a person add value to others without it costing them too much money, especially not in just a competitive environment, but we're hearing about the cost of living going up. There'll be people listening to this or maybe just starting out in business, or resources are tight, and we're on here talking about adding value. So how can we do that?
So first, let's understand the difference between price and value. See, price is a number. That's all it is, okay? It's what the salesperson or company desires to get. It's what the customer may be willing to pay or may not be, but it's a number. Value, on the other hand, is the relative worth, okay? By definition, value is relative. It's the relative worth or desirability of a thing, of something, to the end user or beholder. So in other words, what is it about this thing, this product, this service, this concept, this idea, what have you, that brings so much worth or value to another person that they will willingly exchange their money for it and feel great about it? This is why not everyone is your customer. Not everybody's going to value what you have or what I have or whatever. It's a big world, and that's why we live, right? And so the question then is, so how do you really communicate it, especially in a time where there's an economic situation and so forth? And so let's go back a few years, back to 2008, actually 2009, and no, actually 2008. And this is when the economic crisis really hit. And I heard from this person though in 2009, and he was a roofer. He repaired roofs. He was an entrepreneur who had a business in which he lived in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and he went around repairing roofs. During the financial crisis, he and his fellow roofers were all having a horrible time because the financial situation was so bad that their potential customers, even ones who needed their roofs repaired, didn't want to do it. First, they didn't want to put out that kind of money in an economic time that was not comfortable. And they were worried that they couldn't get reimbursed by their home insurance company, the whole bit. Okay. So at first, before he read the book, this contractor, this roofer, said he and all his fellow roofers, they did the same thing. They tried to pull back on the value they were providing because they were trying to save money and save it, right? And thinking how much little could we do for the same amount of money? Life doesn't work that way because, again, that's not what your customer's interested in. So he had an idea, and I think it was brilliant, of how he could add that additional value. He thought of how he could learn to navigate the insurance system to learn how to best help his roofing customers get the money that was owed to them for reimbursement and do it with the least amount of hassle and the least amount of effort in the quickest period of time. So now when he saw someone who needed a roof repaired, he wouldn't ask, would they like their roof repaired? Because he knew the answer was to, but can't afford to. Instead, it was, I have learned how to work with the insurance companies and can show you how to very quickly and easily get all the money that's owed to you based on your policy and how to get it done fast. His business just took off. So while all his competitors were still stuck in the same thing, he was now doing absolutely great. That's how we do it. We look for ways to please our potential and current customers.
I love it.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I'll jump in. Yeah, I mean, just touching on what you mentioned there, Bob, and what Leon mentioned about entrepreneurs. It's like we talk about the entrepreneurial spirit, but for those of you like myself, I'm not an entrepreneur myself, but does the message in the Go Giver still apply to that?
Dean, it really does. And the reason why is because even if we're not entrepreneurs, which by definition, you own your own business, you've invested money, both yourself and or others, and your end customer is the actual end user, that's an entrepreneur. But even if you're working for another company, you still need to be entrepreneurial. It's just that instead of being an entrepreneur, you're an intrapreneur, right? You're an entrepreneur within another person's organization, but you still have customers. In this case, your customers are who? The business owners, or your supervisor, or the people you lead, who you're responsible to, your coworkers, maybe that person in the other area of the business that's not usually very helpful, but because of the way you're able to respectfully deal with them, they that provide you with information that, you've got to still find ways to bring value to others. Remember we said, as an entrepreneur, no one's going to buy from you because you have a quota to meet. As an entrepreneur, no one's going to hire you and pay you a salary because you have a mortgage payment to make, or you want to send your kids to university, or you want this or you want that. No, they're going to hire you and keep you on because you're giving them more in value than what they're paying. Okay, well, of course, you still need to make a healthy, because otherwise you wouldn't take the job. So yeah, same thing. Same principles apply. You're always looking to bring value to others.
Do that, don't you? And I think what's been interesting on that is Dean's part of our senior leadership team. He does run his own department in there, but what's really interesting is you don't know what you don't know, do you? You know, how many years, nearly 20 years, and you've been here for the entire time. Yeah. But I think what's really interesting is Dean epitomizes what a go-giver is for our customers. All the customers love him. And what's been a big transition for Dean is, since we've changed the business model like 4 or 5 years ago, we've doubled, we've brought a lot of team in, staff, and Dean's had to train them. And he's got further away from the actual doing. You're on the process. Yeah. And I think one of your challenges has always been training that value to other people. It's never, it's never not your problem, is it? And it's out there. So does that give you any ideas what you're thinking?
Yeah, hugely. If anything, Bob, it instills what we're doing is right. When we actively sell to customers now, and I help fix their pains, not just with products and services that we sell, but it asserts what I'm doing is correct. Like when I am selling to a customer, I'm making sure that I'm giving them a product that is suitable for their needs, but then the value that I add additionally by making sure that we look after that product once it's in there, they know that they can fall back on us. Again, I think it's just we offer something slightly different to other companies.
I think maybe to give some of our listeners a context as well, something we bought in IT support is what we do in cybersecurity. It's a very technical sort of skill, and traditionally you'd write an email and you'd send the ticket in and you close the ticket. And when I joined the business 4 years ago, the business was then called Virtual Networking, but I used to be a customer. So the value, when I sat down with Dean and Scott, my business partner, and I said, why did you think I used to buy your IT services? And all of the reasons they told me, I said, no, none of them reasons. You save me time, you save me money, you give me peace of mind, you give me counsel, all them things you said, Bob. And the business used to be called Virtual Networking. And I said, I don't like the name because it sounds like we're virtual, whereas I saw these guys by my side each and every step of the way. There wasn't virtual, there was with me. And little things what Dean started to do with the team, explain like Loom, what's Loom?
Yeah, so it's like clients, traditionally, if a client used to ring with an issue, although we could fix it on the phone, we could also send them a link to like a how-to guide. It's not very personal, it's not very interactive, it's not as if, it doesn't look like we're fixing the problem, we're just giving them something to go and look at themselves. So what we did, we started to be more interactive with the customers by recording personal videos for them and sending them a video of how they click this, click that, and really talking them through the process with a bit of personal value, so they know that we're not sat there next to them, but it's the next best thing. And it gets the customers used to our voices and seeing our faces more, and it built up that. I think it just took the relationship with the clients to the next level.
And it's interesting, Bob, because I'm only piecing this together. It's that Steve Jobs quote. You can never connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking back. And I remember with partner Scott, he looks after the purse strings. I'm the creative one. And then Dean, bless him, he's in the middle of us trying to deliver all this with the team. And back then, some of the arguments we was having, it makes no why on earth am I having to do a video? I'm paid to fix things, not do videos. But we wasn't able to articulate as eloquently as you have done today. But it was about adding that value on it.
It's all about adding that personal value, that touch. We're sending them a video to fix a problem that they're going to eventually do themselves once they watch the video. But they're going to walk away from that thinking these guys have gone above and beyond to help me on this occasion. Do you know?
They know that you have their well-being at heart.
Yeah.
That's the key.
I love that. Bob, mindful of time, we've got you for about another 4 minutes, I think, as I've got it on my calendar, because we had a couple of technical issues, didn't we? But we solved it. So normally what we'd have done, if we had done on the show, we'd have done our 10 commandments. But I think in 4 minutes, if us three are good, we can do quick fire round and get him through it. Do you want to go with the first one?
The Hacks first question normally is 1 to 3 books that have greatly influenced your life. And while linking this into writing The Go-Giver.
So 3 books that have influenced my life.
Yes.
Paul just read my notes. I'll let it out, don't worry. I'll let it out. We'll go again. I'll ask that question.
Go on then.
What are 3? So basically, like we just mentioned, The Go-Giver and The Go-Giver Sales greatly changed and influenced my life. So what are 3 books that have greatly changed or influenced your own life?
Yeah, I would say that How to Win Friends and Influence People was one that really made a huge difference for me. There's also a book called Psycho-Cybernetics, which was written by Dr. Maxwell Maltz and published in 1960. That was the first one that showed me that your belief systems, what you believe about life, and they're all unconscious beliefs, that is what's going to determine where you go. And you can never accomplish more than your most limiting belief. I'd say another one is Peace, Power, and Plenty by, oh my goodness, hold on one second, Orison Swett Marden. It was written in 1906. Those 3 are probably the 3 that made the biggest differences to me when I first started really getting into reading, studying personal development.
You go next. No, Dean, go.
I'll jump in on this one. I'm going to jump in with what is your feel-good song or music that gets you focused or makes you happy?
It is not one particular song, but anything from the late 50s, early 60s, the at the hop kind of music. It's just upbeat, and you just listen to it, you feel good.
Love it. So, Bob, what purchase of $60 or less has had most positively impacted your life in the last 6 months?
It's any book that I've read that I've enjoyed greatly. It would be less than $60 and it would have a big impact on my life.
It's great.
You got it.
Okay, so Bob, for our listeners, do you have any lessons that you've learned from any of your failures in the past?
Yeah, I was very resistant to change. And some people love change, other people don't. I don't. My tendency is to get really proficient at something and just want it to stay the same. The challenge is things don't stay the same. And successful people deal in truths. And they understand that it doesn't matter how much they want something to be a certain way. If it isn't, it isn't. And so I had to really learn that it didn't matter whether or not I liked change. I had to be willing to change when the time was correct and appropriate to do that.
Yeah, I like that.
I love that. We're nicking that one that way. We're nicking that one, change. I'll go next quickly on that one. What is a favorite quote or saying? If you could share with everyone in the world, what is it and why?
Favorite what? Saying?
Yeah, quote or saying.
Maybe Zig Ziglar's wonderful saying, you can have everything in life you want if you'll just help enough other people get what they want.
Incredible.
Like that.
Love it. In the last 5 years, what new habit or belief has had the most profound effect on your life, Bob?
I think it's really trying to discover where I'm wrong about something. I always had a need to be right. And I've really worked over the last years on really making a point of even trying to figure out where I'm wrong or not totally right about something and go from there and be able to accept it and embrace it. I don't think it's ever fun to realize that you're wrong, but it's a good feeling to know that you're not getting stuck in old patterns or old beliefs, but that you have the ability to be open-minded enough to look and to allow yourself to admit to being wrong.
That links into your point on change, doesn't it, as well, Bob? I think that's huge. I love
that answer. Jump in. So, Bob, knowing what you know now, what advice would you give yourself or others at 18, and what advice should they ignore?
This is probably the easiest one. I would give my young 18-year-old self the advice to shut up and start listening, because young Bob Berg, you don't know anything, and everything you think you do know is pretty much wrong. And so listen and learn and realize you don't even know what you don't know.
No, I love that. And that's the first time we've had that answer, I think.
The first time.
That's a great one.
Next one. We all at times feel burnt out, unfocused, unenergized. What is it that you do? And if helpful, what sort of questions do you ask yourself to re-energize?
I think when we're feeling down or lethargic or just not really into what we should be doing, which I think happens to all of us at times, I think it's a matter of coming up with your why and just reminding yourself why you're doing the things you're doing. And then doing the thing. Because one of the things I learned from another amazing book that I read many years ago, it was by Dr. David Schwartz, called The Magic of Thinking Big. He's the first one who taught me in that book that action precedes feeling. Most people think you've got to feel a certain way before you act on that feeling. Totally the opposite. Act a certain way and that feeling will then come.
Yeah, I love that.
Right, quick Who in the world would you like to interview, past, present, or why, Bob?
It would either be Benjamin Franklin or it would be Booker T. Washington. Both of them were, Franklin, of course, was one of the U.S. framers and a great humanitarian, and he was a inventor and a great thinker. Booker T. Washington was actually a slave for the first 8 years of his life. He went on to run Tuskegee University and touch the lives of hundreds of millions of people, and his writings are absolutely brilliant. And there's so much I could interview him about, and just it would be amazing.
Love it. And we've got last one.
Yeah, last one. Is there anything we should have asked you but we didn't?
No, you all did a wonderful job. It was a pleasure and a delight and an honor to be with all of you today.
Thank you, Bob.
No, thank you, Bob. And I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart, because in true Go Giver style, I reached out to you and yeah, no problem. Sure, let's jump on. And we're 6 minutes over, so I do apologize.
That's okay. That's okay.
Thank you, Bob.
Yeah, that's great.
So that's Leon checking out.
Paul checking out.
It's Dean checking out.
Thanks, Bob.
Thank you.
So that's us done. So what we normally do next actions is we'll get like a blog written up. I'll send it over for you for approval. And on that link you sent me before, is he a photograph on there, a headshot of you?
Yeah. Just scroll down and
scroll down
to it where it will say graphics.
Okay, I'll go and I'll get that, and then you'll be out. Not next month. We'll put you out, but I can't thank you enough.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Bob.
Appreciate your time on that, Bob.
Welcome to The Hack, the straight-talking smart tech podcast where we discuss the ever-changing world we live in today. It's time to start thinking differently. So tune in and buckle up for some home truths as Hull and East Yorkshire's very own digital tech experts talk transformation and change, focusing on people, process and technology.